Welcome back to Monster Girl Doctor Anime Review, episode number 2. This one discussing episodes 5 through 8. And the interesting thing with this, now I should point out something I forgot to mention in the last episode. A lot of these episodes' titles are actually taken from actual chapter titles from the actual book. Now, this is episodes 5 through 8. These episodes are called The Centaur with a Sprain, The Harper Who Can't Fly, The Anistic Arcane, and the Attack on Gigantas. Yeah, that's what pretty much these episodes are called. And pretty much also, all 4 episodes are set in one location. Unlike the first 2 episodes, which were set in the city, this one mostly put for episodes 5 through 7, and most of episode 8 is set in the Harpy Village. Because Glenn and Sephi are invited to the village itself. Now, I should just point out that in this particular, I will reveal exactly who voices just a couple characters. Well, I will reveal their voice actors for. Actually, about 3 of them. Let's see. Here we go. Now, Lady Scotty herself. Now, I'm going to reveal who basically voices her because she finally gets a chance to hear her actually speak in episode 8. She's voiced by Carmela Lee. Yes, the same actress who voiced Lucy from Fairy Tail. Yep. Illy is voiced by Kira Buckland. Yep. Yeah. Now, there's also the giant that appears here. She is voiced by Lizzie Freeman. I'm not familiar with her at all. Yeah. Now, she doesn't show up until you don't see her physically show up until episode 8. So, they're on the way to the village, and on the way there, now basically Glenn and Sephi are basically transported by Tanisa, who's a centaur, and her 2 associates. One of them gets injured protecting Glenn, and she gets a sprain, so Glenn treats her. And the other one basically, well, because she's not around to help her out, she pretty much just she starts sucking at her job. So she constantly worries, and then eventually, thanks to basically putting her in a very dominating position, thanks to basically put some straps on her, able to straighten her out, she's able to be perfectly fine. Now, as for Illy herself, she pretty much is embarrassed by seeing Dr. Glenn. There's a good reason for that. Because he saw her basically lay an egg. Yep, that's the reason for it. And he's here to basically diagnose of why in the world she can't fly. Yeah, she's molting. But here's something interesting though. They actually reveal that she's a distant relative of the Phoenix. No, not the Phoenix from Marvel Comics. Oh no, not that one. This is completely unrelated. The actual bird Phoenix. The immortal bird. And apparently, Illy basically is a descendant of this particular bird. Interesting. I never knew that. Of course, this is on the book too. And apparently her feathers can change colors. This is also when they show off the Spider Lady. Which, by the way, they never actually referred to that in the actual episode. Just referred to as the Spider. Yeah, her name is Arachnia. Yeah, she's voiced by the ever awesome Wendy Lee. Great voice actress, by the way. And unlike in the case of the one from Monster Sumi, this one has 4 arms instead of 2. The reason why she does this is because she's a seamstress. What does she use, basically? Mostly she uses the silk from the cobwebs. Yeah, how she showed up here is quite interesting. Apparently, she was looking for Glenn for some reason. Well, actually, the reason is because Sephi's been bragging about him like crazy. And she also mentioned to him that she's got the hots for him. Of course, she also reveals while they're having a drink, no, she's not drunk yet, that she reveals she does love Glenn. Glenn, from what I can tell, does accept it, but doesn't say anything about it. But he has no problem with the fact Sephi's in love with him. He has no problem with it. Despite the fact also that Tanisa is also in love with him too. The arachnid, she just wants to steal him. She doesn't have a thing for him. Nope. No, she doesn't. Just basically sees him as just an object to steal from Sephi because they're best friends. And of course Sephi's like, yeah, that's basically, I already knew about that. It's also revealed she also is the one that's made Sephi's nurses out because Lima's basically can get cold because they're cold-blooded. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, and of course, after they treat Lily, they later on show her basically where she's got multiple colors, and she can fly perfectly fine. And of course, then she caught up cobwebs. Yeah, the whole thing with her being diagnosed, that lasts for like one episode, and then she's got up cobwebs. Like, okay, like how do we get this stuff off? Oh yeah, just go to the hot spring and basically wash stuff off. The centaurs apparently the harpies get it too. That's when they found out the spider lady is there. That's when the whole stealing thing. And of course, they fight each other over, and Sephi knows about it. But Sephi doesn't have really a problem with it at all, because here's the thing. Irena knows if she does anything to Glenn, Sephi will be very unhappy with her. She knows that. That's why she doesn't harm him at all. I mean, he does tie her up a couple times, but she just does it for fun. She's not gonna actually cut him anything. Nope. Also, Illy does briefly spar with Denisa, where she has cut her, but she's not cut to be a gladiator. Though later on it's revealed she does hire as a messenger for her corporation, which, okay, that's actually quite interesting. She loves to fly, so why not be a messenger for it? Not a bad idea. I mean, she's a creature who can fly, so why not make her a messenger? Good idea on your part. Keeps her around in the story. Also, then they have this thing where, oh yeah, there's a giant. Yes, a giant shows up here. They're like, wow, a giant. I'm like, okay, that's not surprising because they've had a cyclops, a centaur, a snake woman, a spider woman, a mermaid, a giant. Well, they also have had a cadet. They basically have had a flesh golem, aka a zombie, but a giant? That's interesting because Matsuzumi didn't have a giant. Which, that's interesting because basically a lot of the characters basically are similar to the ones from Matsuzumi because the writer of the series is a big fan of Matsuzumi, most of the anime. But the giant? No, there was no giant in the actors. Not that I remember, no. So apparently she's basically caused some trouble there. She shows up, they first hint at her at the end of episode 7. She shows up in episode 8. Where they see her, and she's a very lovely woman with long green hair, though she apparently doesn't wear much for clothing. She's not naked per se. She wears like one layer of clothing. Oh yeah, it turns out the reason why she's here just for a visit. And there was a legend that she basically apparently tried to attack the village, but turns out it wasn't true. Yeah, it was basically a mistake. It just misinterpretation legend. So it turns out she's got a cold. And she comes to the village because she wants to get treated by Glenn. Okay. Interesting. And, of course, Denisa basically, she's willing to actually die for Glenn because she's got a thing for him. Yeah, she doesn't say to him per se that she's got a thing for him, but apparently she really wants to court him and basically make her husband and the heir, and basically have him produce an heir to her family's company. Because she thinks she's the right choice, despite the fact they have the doctor-patient thing. Now, normally in the real world, if a doctor attempts to do anything let's just say, sexual to his patient, he loses his license. Apparently, in this world, it's perfectly fine. And it's perfectly acceptable. By the way, Cynthia does appear for one episode of this bunch. Yeah, in the book, she actually does a little bit more. In the actual book itself, they actually cut a little bit they actually trimmed a lot of her screen time for this one. Like, the way she appeared in the stuff for the first book, that's accurate to the first book. This one, they did trim her down a bit, and there's no mention of her, basically, where here's the thing, in the actual book itself, it's revealed that Cynthia previously had a thing for Glenn. That's the reason why she wanted to keep Glenn and Sephi separated, because she got a thing for him. Which, okay, I don't know if that's in the next episode or not, but from what I can tell, this episode, I don't know from what I can tell. I mean, the stuff related to Giant, that's pretty accurate to how it was in the book. Like, of course, you have Glenn examining her, she got cold, and then, of course, then he has this thing where, oh yeah, he falls off the scaffolding they built for him, so he can basically examine her because she's a giant. So, he ends up falling off, and basically he's caught by her breast. She ends up bouncing a lot like a trampoline. And then twice, he falls in between her breast. And then, of course, Arachnia basically decides to make her some clothing, and of course she's given some medicine to make sure she just treats her cold, and if everything gets cold again, give her more clothing. And of course Arachnia makes her excellent clothing. It looks like very much like European style from what I can tell. Yeah, with the hat. It looks like something out of like Eastern Europe, which kudos. Because what I could tell for this series, it seems like though like a lot of the clothing and a lot of, let's say, the style way the stuff looks, it looks like Middle Ages Europe Middle Ages. That looks like to me, and the outfit looks like somewhat modern day. I would say like Norway-ish. Her outfit looks. It's possible. Or it could be Swedish. Yeah. And then of course they go back home after they finish up in the city. They briefly actually wanted to evacuate the Harpy village, but lucky enough figures out though that though Tanisa basically has to order to everybody like have Illy go to the city and basically inform Lady Scotty about what exactly is happening, which good move on her part, and she gets there pretty quickly. But she also ends up apparently breaking the window in her bedroom. And we also see what she looks like without her outfit on. Well, her cover-up outfit she wears in public. Yeah, I'm not really sure why she hides her tail from public. It doesn't really make any sense. And also, she can speak perfectly fine. Somewhat anyway, despite the fact she whisper. And apparently Illy is the first person in the series besides Katana, basically to hear her actual voice. Also, I should point out to Arachnia, for some reason, Wendy Lee gave her a southern accent. Yeah, I have no idea why. It's quite strange. Like, she talks like she's a southern belle. If you know what southern bells sound like, yeah, that's what Wendy Lee gives the character. A spider lady who is in Middle Ages, who basically is living in a Middle Ages style city, a southern accent. No idea why, but at least she's not dropping the N-word or basically saying, oh yeah, that's like acting like a frickin' redneck. Whatever. Yeah. Then of course, they go home and of course they invite to the special ceremony. Glenn takes Nisa, basically invites her to have dinner, basically was mostly salad. And Steffi's there watching. And then they have the actual ceremony itself. And it's also that Arachnia, who also made the costume for the mermaids. The mermaid herself shows up here. What's her name? I completely forget her name. She actually, let's see, her name is Luna. Yes, Luna. Yeah, Luna. She briefly appears in this episode 8, where it's revealed that the arachnid basically made her costume. Like, is this cute? It's a pretty good looking outfit. I admit she did a really good job with it. Hey, at least they give a character something to do, make costumes. And of course you have Lady Scotty giving a speech, and then the episode ends basically where she faints. Okay. Looking forward to watching those 4 episodes, but I gotta read book 3 first to figure out what happens next. Yep. But I gotta say, these 4 episodes are pretty good. I would say mostly put they did a very good job of keeping a lot of the stuff in from the book. Like, I would say the only thing they cut out here was basically Cynthia herself. Like, she appears briefly for one scene in, I think it was episode 6, I think it was. And that's it for her. Yeah, it's kind of strange though. She's the only character who gets less screen time. Of all the characters I've seen in these past 8 episodes, Lady Scotty, in case you're curious though, did they cut any screen time for her? Not really, no. It's pretty accurate to how she's picking the books I've read. So, nothing really wrong there. Cynthia, for the first book, yeah, it's pretty accurate how she picked it there. This book, I think they kind of trimmed her down a bit. And they also removed some lines of dialogue from the book, which, okay, fine. But I have heard this series to get some criticism for cutting out a lot of the world building for basically when they adapted these books into episodes. Well, I could tell there is some world building, not a lot. It's mostly mentioning and background stuff. That's mostly like background dialogue. But all in all, this was a pretty good set of episodes, and I can't wait for the next set. Okay, so that's it for this particular review. Now, tomorrow is, of course, Christmas Day. and I will be doing a haul video, basically what I get for Christmas tomorrow. I will hopefully get time to get a chance to review for Fire Force, because they're reviewing at least a new episode tomorrow. Or Ship Half Day and Princess. And tonight I'm going to start watching One Piece. Basically starting the Dressrosa arc. Yep, I'm so looking forward to watching that, because I originally watched this arc subbed 3 years ago. And now the series is finally getting to the dub. I can't wait to watch and talk about basically this really good arc, but it's long. So freaking long. I will discuss more about that when I discuss about One Piece. I might get a chance to watch tonight. It's possible, to say the least. Okay, so that's it for this particular review. Now, do I have a comic corner coming up? I don't have any trades ready yet, so I haven't read anything yet, so it's just a review maybe tonight or tomorrow at best, but could happen. Yep. But until this next video, bye.